Nobody in the entire neighborhood of Imans could understand why Amaka always felt uneasy in her own house. People believed she was simply overthinking, because her home looked peaceful on the outside, a well-painted bungalow with flowers in front and a calm compound that welcomed early morning birds. But peace was only on the outside. Inside the house, something strange lived quietly, pretending to be ordinary. That something was her maid, a quiet girl named MMA. She had come to live with them only 6 months ago, recommended by a distant relative who said she was hard-working, gentle, and well-behaved. And truly, she worked without complaint. She cleaned before sunrise, cooked before anyone woke up, and never demanded anything. She never raised her voice, never argued, never forgot instructions. To outsiders, she was a perfect maid. But there were small things about her, things that never made sense. She never ate with the family. In fact, Amaka had never truly seen her put food in her mouth. She would prepare meals, serve everyone, and when Amaka asked, "MMA, won't you eat?" she always replied with the same soft smile, "I am not hungry, Ma." She also never slept, at least not on a bed. Every night when the house grew quiet and the children were already dreaming, Amaka would walk past the corridor to check things. She always found the maid standing at the same corner, wide awake, eyes fixed on nothing, as if she was listening to voices nobody else could hear. Sometimes MMA would disappear for hours. Nobody knew where she went. She would simply appear again, silently walking past the kitchen door, her steps too soft for a human being. But Amaka forced herself to ignore all of it, because her life was stressful enough. Her husband, Ibuka, was hardly ever home. Her business needed attention, and raising 2 children alone most of the time had already drained her. She told herself she needed help, and if the maid was doing her job well, then that was all that mattered. Until one morning changed everything forever. It was a bright Monday morning, the kind of morning that should start with birds singing and the smell of warm food. Amaka woke up early, planning to prepare breakfast for the kids because they had exams that week. Normally, the maid would be in the kitchen already, cleaning or boiling water. But today, the house was unusually quiet. Too quiet. She tied her wrapper, stepped out of her room, and walked into the corridor. The silence felt heavy. She thought maybe the maid overslept, something she had never done before. But when she got closer to the kitchen, she sensed something cold rise in her chest, something that felt like a warning. She pushed the kitchen door gently. What she saw froze her in place. The maid was not standing on the floor. She was floating, her feet hanging inches above the ground, her entire body rising slowly like a feather suspended in the air. Her eyes were wide open but completely white, no pupils, no movement. Her hands were stretched out in front of her, and every pot in the kitchen was shaking gently, as if obeying something she was controlling. But that was not the worst part. She was chanting. Her voice was not the voice of a young girl. It was deep, ancient, like the rumble that comes before a storm. The words were not from any language Amaka had ever heard. They sounded like they came from the earth itself, old and trembling. Amaka gasped loudly before she could stop herself. The moment the sound escaped her lips, the maid's floating body dropped softly to the floor, without making a single sound. The kitchen became silent, too silent. Slowly, too slowly, the maid turned around. Her eyes, which had been white a second ago, were now normal, smiling innocent, as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, Ma," she said softly. "Should I make tea?" Amaka could not speak. Her whole body shook. Her throat felt dry. Her legs wanted to run, but her mind could not process what she had seen. Was it real? Was she still dreaming? Did her eyes deceive her? She gripped the doorframe, forcing herself to stay calm, but every hair on her body was standing. Her heartbeat was loud enough to drown every other sound. The maid tilted her head slightly. "Ma, are you okay?" Amaka swallowed hard. Something was wrong. Very wrong. This was no ordinary girl. This was no ordinary morning. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew her life would never be the same again. Before she could answer, a sudden loud crash echoed from the living room, as if someone pushed furniture violently. Both of them turned toward the noise. The maid smiled strangely. "Don't worry, Ma. It has started." Amaka felt her stomach collapse. "What has started?" she whispered. But the maid only walked past her gently, humming a tune that did not sound human. And that was the moment Amaka knew. Her maid was not a human being. Not at all. If you want to find out what the maid truly is, why she entered Amaka's home, and the terrifying secret she has been hiding for months, make sure you stay with us on Tales by Wealth, and don't miss the next chapter. Amaka spent the rest of the morning in a daze, moving from room to room with trembling hands, pretending everything was normal. She prepared the children for school, packed their bags, and forced a smile even though her heart was beating too loudly inside her chest. She kept glancing at MMA every few minutes, trying to catch something strange, something supernatural, something that would confirm she had not imagined what she saw in the kitchen. But the maid acted completely normal. Perfectly normal. Too normal. She swept the compound, washed dishes, ironed the children's uniforms the next day, and hummed softly as she worked. Not a single sign of the white eyes, floating body, or ancient voice Amaka had witnessed. The girl looked harmless, small, quiet, gentle. In fact, her smile that morning was even softer than usual, almost comforting, and that made Amaka even more frightened, because it meant MMA knew what Amaka saw, and she was pretending nothing happened. When the children left for school, Amaka sat alone in the living room, her mind spinning. She clutched her wrapper tightly, replaying the moment over and over again. The floating, the white eyes, the shaking pots, the voice that didn't belong to a human being. She wanted to tell someone, anyone, but who would believe her? Even she struggled to believe it. Her neighbor, Mama Ojeki, came knocking around 10 a.m. to ask for a loan of pepper, but Amaka quickly pretended not to be home. She wasn't in the mood for conversation. She didn't want to talk with anyone who might look at her and sense she was carrying a terrifying secret. But the real trouble didn't start until noon. She was in her bedroom sorting clothes when she heard footsteps walking on the roof. Slow, heavy footsteps. Step, step, step. It was not the light scampering of squirrels or birds. It sounded like a person. No, something heavier than a person, walking gently across the ceiling. At first, she froze. Then she rushed out, terrified someone had climbed onto the roof to steal something. She ran outside and looked upward. There was nothing. No thief. No shadow. No movement. Yet the footsteps continued above her head, too clear to be imagination. Her heart began to pound again. She backed away slowly, clutching her chest. When she turned around to re-enter the house, she almost collided with MMA standing directly behind her. The maid stared at her with calm, innocent eyes, but her presence felt wrong. Too sudden, too close. "Ma," she said gently, "are you hearing them?" "What?" Amaka whispered, her voice shaking. "The footsteps," the maid replied. "They walked during the day, too. They are restless now." Amaka felt her throat tighten. "Who is restless?" she forced out slowly. The maid simply looked at the roof, her eyes unblinking. "The ones that follow your family." Amaka staggered backward. Her mind screamed. Her body trembled. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. "What do you mean follow?" she whispered. "Follow who? Follow why?" But the maid didn't answer. She walked past her and headed back inside the house, humming the same strange tune she hummed earlier. The footsteps on the roof suddenly stopped the moment the girl stepped to the doorway. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Later that afternoon, when Amaka tried to rest, she heard soft whispers in the children's bedroom. At first, she thought maybe the children had returned early from school. But when she entered the room, the beds were empty. The whispering, however, did not stop. It seemed to come from the walls. She pressed her ear gently against the wall. The whispers grew louder, low, quick voices like people arguing in a language she couldn't understand. She stepped back, horrified. All the pictures on the wall trembled lightly, as though something invisible brushed past them. The curtains moved even though the windows were closed. A deep coldness spread through the air, not like normal weather cold. This one felt alive. Amaka ran out and slammed the door, her breath shaking. She rushed to her phone, dialing her husband's number. It rang once, twice, but he didn't answer. She tried again. Still nothing. She sent a message. "Please call me. Something is wrong at home." No reply came. She was all alone with the thing. She called her maid. By evening, her hands were cold from fear. She couldn't focus. She couldn't eat. She kept watching Maid from the corner of her eye, praying for the day to end quickly, praying for night not to come. But night came, and with it came something worse. The children returned from school, cheerful and innocent, unaware of the terror their mother carried in her heart. As they sat down for homework, her 6-year-old daughter, Kizram, raised her head and asked a question that made Amaka forget how to breathe. "Mummy," she said casually, "why does Aunt Emma walk on the ceiling at night?" Amaka's blood froze. She turned slowly, her voice barely coming out. What did you say?" The little girl shrugged innocently. "She walks upside down on the ceiling. She watches us when we sleep. Her eyes shine like torchlight." Her son nodded quickly. "Yes, Mummy. And sometimes she stands by our door breathing loudly. But when we wake up, she disappears." Amaka felt her legs give way. She sat down slowly, holding her head with both hands as tears filled her eyes. The children had seen it too. She wasn't imagining anything. The girl living in her house, the girl cooking their food, the girl cleaning their rooms, was not a human being. As she wiped her tears, trying not to scare the children, she heard the maid's soft footsteps approaching from behind. "Madam," she said quietly, "should I set the table for dinner?" Amaka didn't turn around. She couldn't, but she felt a chill run through her body as the maid added softly, "Tonight, you will understand everything." Amaka's heart dropped. Something was coming. Something bigger than fear. Something she was not prepared for. And night had only just begun. That night felt different from any other night Amaka had ever lived through. Even before the sun fully disappeared, the air in the house grew heavy, thick, almost difficult to breathe. The children finished their homework early and fell asleep unusually fast, as if drawn into a strange, unnatural tiredness. Amaka tried to stay awake, pacing the living room, her wrapper tied tightly around her waist, her heart beating like a drum calling for help. Every corner of the house felt like it was watching her. Every shadow seemed deeper, darker, waiting. By 9 p.m., her husband had still not called back. She dialed him again and again, but the phone rang endlessly without answer. It felt as if she had been cut off from the world, left alone with something ancient she didn't understand, something that wanted her attention, something she could no longer ignore. The house grew too quiet, not the peaceful silence of bedtime. This one felt unnatural, like the entire building was holding its breath. Even the generator hums from neighboring houses sounded distant. Amaka walked to check the windows just to distract herself, but she stopped halfway down the corridor when she noticed something strange. The children's bedroom door was open. She remembered closing it earlier. Her heart jumped into her throat. She rushed toward the door, her feet trembling, and peeked inside. The room was dim, lit only by a faint moonlight slipping through the curtains. Everything looked normal at first. The children tucked into their beds, sleeping peacefully. But then she saw it, a shadow on the wall, a shape that did not belong to anything inside the room. It looked like a person standing in the corner, but there was no person. The shadow moved. Amaka gasped loudly, her hand flying to her mouth. As she blinked in fear, the shadow slowly stretched upward across the ceiling, like something crawling without a body. Before she could run, a cold whisper floated behind her. "You shouldn't be here, madam." Her heart nearly stopped. She turned slowly. The maid was standing behind her, but there was something wrong about her posture. She wasn't standing straight. Her head was tilted too far to one side, as if her neck had loosened. Her eyes were too wide, too calm, too aware. "You should let them sleep," MMA whispered. "Tonight is not for you to witness." Amaka stepped back, her voice shaking. What is happening in my house? Who are you? What are you?" The maid didn't answer. She simply lifted one finger and pointed at the ceiling. Amaka followed the direction of her finger with terrified eyes, and what she saw almost made her collapse. There was something on the ceiling, something shaped like a woman with long, dragging limbs, crouched upside down, its head twisted in a direction no human neck could turn. Its hair hung like vines. Its glowing eyes matched the white eyes she saw in the kitchen that morning. It clung to the ceiling like a lizard, silently watching her. Amaka screamed. The creature moved, fast, unnatural, a blur of shadow and bone. But instead of dropping down, it slipped into a wall like smoke disappearing into a crack. Amaka stumbled backward, trembling violently. The children did not wake up. They didn't stir at all, as if something kept them asleep intentionally. The maid sighed softly, almost sadly. "This is why I told you not to come," she said. "They are restless tonight." "They?" Amaka cried. "What do you mean, they? What are they?" MMA stepped closer, her bare feet making no sound on the cold tiles. "Those who were here before you moved into this land. Those who watch. Those who guard. Those who punish." Amaka shook her head rapidly. "You're speaking in riddles. Tell me what you are." The maid leaned in slightly, her eyes glowing faintly. "I am not your enemy, madam. But tonight, if you do not obey, you may not see the morning." A loud, thunderous vibration suddenly shook the entire house. The walls trembled. The bulbs flickered violently. The floor vibrated under her feet. A forceful wind burst through the corridor, even though every window was locked. Papers flew. Curtains whipped like angry hands. The front door rattled, as if pushed by invisible beings trying to enter. Amaka covered her head and fell to her knees. "God help me. God, please help me." But the maid stood calmly, her expression unchanged. "It is too late to call anyone else," she said. "Tonight, they want you to see what your husband has been hiding. They want you to understand why I came." "My husband?" Amaka whispered, her voice shaking with new fear. "What does Ibuka have to do with this?" Before MMA could answer, the living room lights exploded, small bursts of white sparks flashing like lightning, plunging the entire house into darkness. The children's room door slammed shut on its own, the loud bang echoing through every corner. Amaka rushed forward to grab the door handle, screaming, "My children! My babies!" But when she touched the handle, it burned her palm, forcing her to let go. A deep voice, not human, not earthly, spoke from somewhere inside the walls. "You were warned." The maid gently placed her hand on Amaka's shoulder. Her touch was cold, comforting, and terrifying at the same time. "Do not fight them," she whispered. "Tonight, the truth will walk into your eyes, whether you like it or not." The entire house groaned loudly, like a living creature stretching its bones. And suddenly, footsteps began to descend the staircase. Slow, heavy footsteps. But no one had gone upstairs. Something was coming down. Something unseen. Something ancient. Something angry. Amaka held her breath as each step echoed through the darkness, each thud shaking her heart. And then the voice spoke again. Lower. Closer. "You must know." MMA stepped back into the shadows, her eyes shining like two pale moons. "Madam," she whispered solemnly, "prepare yourself. Everything you believed about your life is about to change." And in that moment, Amaka knew the nightmare had only just begun. The footsteps coming down the staircase grew louder, heavier, so heavy that the entire building seemed to breathe with each thud. Amaka pressed herself against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. She didn't know what was approaching, but every instinct in her body told her to run. Yet her legs were too weak to obey. The air felt thick, almost solid, as though invisible hands were gripping her throat. The house was completely dark, except for the faint glow from the hallway window. In that dim light, the shadows seemed to move on their own, stretching and pulling like living creatures waiting to swallow her. She could no longer hear her children, and that terrified her more than anything else. The silence behind her door felt wrong, too deep, too unnatural. As the footsteps reached the last step, the air suddenly turned icy cold. Amaka felt it touch her skin like winter wind, freezing her from the inside. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then the maid stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Her voice was gentle, almost comforting, but there was something ancient in it. "Do not be afraid of them," she whispered. "Be afraid of the one who brought them." Amaka's heart dropped. She knew exactly who she meant. Her husband. She tried to speak, but her lips trembled too much. What did Ibuka do? The footsteps stopped. Dead silence followed. A silence so thick it felt like time had paused. The house exhaled slowly, as though bracing for what would come next. Then, in a voice that did not belong to any human being on earth, something whispered from the staircase. "His debt has come due." Amaka clutched her chest, fear slicing through her like a blade. "Debt? What debt?" "My husband doesn't owe anyone." The maid looked at her with a pity that frightened her even more than anger would have. "He owes the ones beneath the earth," she said softly. "He made a promise before he married you, a promise he never fulfilled." "No," Amaka whispered, shaking her head violently. "No, no, no. You're lying. He would never." But before she could finish, the living room lights flickered violently and came back on for a split second, just long enough for her to see something standing at the bottom of the stairs. A shadow, a tall, distorted, inhuman shadow. When the lights died again, the shadow remained darker than the darkness itself, pulsing with slow, frightening breath. Amaka screamed and fell backward. The shadow moved, not walking, gliding. As it approached, she could feel the weight of its presence crushing her chest, making it impossible to breathe. The maid knelt beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering something like a chant. Instantly, the shadow paused, as if recognizing her. "You cannot touch her," the maid said firmly, her voice deeper now. "Not until she knows the truth." The shadow let out a low rumble, shaking the windows, rattling the cupboards, and vibrating the floor like an earthquake. Then it vanished, just like that. Gone, but not gone. Watching, waiting. Amaka stared at the maid with wild eyes. "Tell me, what truth? What debt? What did my husband do?" MMA sighed deeply, the sound too old for a young girl's body. She stood slowly and walked toward the window, staring out into the darkness of the compound. "He went to a shrine," she said, "long before you met him. He begged for success, for wealth, for a bright future, and they gave it to him." Tears spilled down Amaka's cheeks. "Ibuka doesn't believe in that. He always said—" He lied. The maid interrupted gently. "To protect himself, and to protect you from knowing that the life you built was never fully yours." Amaka felt dizzy. Her entire world shook. Then why are they here now? Why after all these years? Because the time he was given is finished, MMA said quietly. He was supposed to return to the shrine with a sacrifice before your first child turned 7. Amaka's heart stopped. Her daughter turned 7 2 weeks ago. Her lips trembled violently. A sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice? The maid looked at her, with eyes full of sorrow. His firstborn. Amaka screamed so loudly that her voice cracked. She covered her ears and cried in panic, shaking her head repeatedly as if rejecting the truth would make it disappear. No, no, not my child. He would never agree to that. He would never. He didn't agree, the maid said softly. But he didn't stop it either. And now, the ones he made a deal with have come to collect. Amaka felt a sharp pain in her chest. Betrayal, fear, shock. Everything hit her at once. She could barely breathe. "But you," she whispered, choking on tears. "You said you are my enemy. Then why are you here? Who sent you?" The maid stepped closer. "I was sent by the one who pitted your family. I was sent to protect the children from the thing Ibuka summoned into your bloodline." Amaka shook uncontrollably. "But you're not human." The maid lowered her head. "No, I am not." "Then what are you?" The girl lifted her face again, and for the first time, Amaka saw her eyes glow with a light so powerful, so ancient, that she felt her soul tremble. "I am the balance keeper between worlds," she whispered, "the last of the forest spirits. And I came into your home because tonight, the final fight for your children's lives begins." A sudden loud crack thundered through the house. The children's bedroom door burst open violently. A wind howled from inside the room. The maid's eyes turned bright white. "Stay behind me," she commanded. "They are coming for your daughter first." Amaka screamed her child's name as the darkness rushed toward them like a wave. And that was the moment she knew. Her life had already crossed into a world she never believed existed. The moment the children's bedroom door flew open, the entire house roared with a force Amaka had never felt in her life. It was as if a storm had erupted inside the walls, pushing wine through every crack, every space, every shadow. The curtains whipped violently. Books fell from shelves, and the lights flickered in rapid bursts like lightning trapped inside bulbs. Amaka held onto the maid's arm, terrified, her breath shaking out in short gasps. But M.A. stood rooted to the ground, her white eyes glowing brighter, shining like two moons in the darkness. Her small frame looked impossibly strong, as though the storm itself feared her. A deep wind rushed out of the children's room, cold, ancient, and carrying whispers that did not sound human. They spoke in a language older than the earth, layered with anger and hunger. The sound made Amaka fall to her knees, covering her ears to stop her mind from unraveling. From inside the room, a presence began to form. At first, it was only darkness, a thick, swirling mass of shadow. Then a shape slowly emerged, stretching tall, unnaturally tall, with limbs far too long and a head that touched the ceiling even while its feet never touched the ground. Its body moved like smoke, but its eyes glowed red, burning like coal. It watched them. It watched her, the firstborn. Amaka's voice cracked. "Please, please leave her alone. She's just a child." The creature didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe. It simply extended one long hand toward Kizaram's bed. Amaka tried to run into the room, but the wind slammed her backward, pinning her to the wall. She cried and screamed her daughter's name, but her voice was swallowed by the roaring darkness. Then the creature spoke. Its voice was not sound. It was vibration. It crawled into Amaka's bones. "The bloodline owes you S." Amaka sobbed. "Please, take me instead. I beg you, leave my children." But the creature ignored her. MMA stepped forward. Her feet lifted slightly off the ground. Her hair rose as though underwater. Her skin glowed with an emerald green light, a color not humanly possible. "You will not take her," the maid said, but her voice had changed, deeper, layered, echoing with many voices at once. The creature hissed, the sound like tearing metal. "You have no right to interfere." MMA lifted her hand, drawing a line in the air. A bright symbol formed, ancient and glowing. The creature recoiled instantly, screaming in anger. The walls shook, light bulbs cracked, and dust fell from the ceiling. "She is under my protection," MMA declared. "You shall not touch this child." The creature screamed again, this time with fury so intense that every window in the house shattered at once. Glass flew through the air like sharp rain. Amaka shielded her face, crying out in terror, but MMA stood unflinching. "You cannot win this battle tonight," the maid continued. "Go back to your shadows. Your master broke the agreement, not this family." The creature's body twisted violently, darkness swirling around it like a storm. It rose higher, stretching to the ceiling, its red eyes narrowing into thin lines of rage. Then it whispered, "The debt will be paid." With a loud, thunderous crack, the creature vanished. Instantly, the wind stopped. The house became still. The silence that followed was painful, heavy, suffocating. Amaka crawled weakly into the children's room, crying as she pulled her daughter into her arms. Kizaram remained deeply asleep, untouched, unaware of the horror that had come for her soul. Her son was curled in his bed as well, unharmed, breathing softly as though nothing had happened. Amaka wept uncontrollably, clutching her children tightly. "Thank you," she whispered between sobs. "Thank you for saving them. Thank you." But when she turned around, she froze. The maid was not standing normally. She was floating, inches above the ground, her eyes still glowing, her body trembling as if carrying the weight of 1,000 years. The green light around her flickered like fireflies dying out. Then, suddenly, she dropped to the floor, hard, Amaka screamed and rushed to her. The maid's eyes had returned to normal, but her breathing was weak, shallow, and her skin looked pale, almost fading. "What's happening to you?" Amaka cried. "Please talk to me." The girl blinked slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. They took some of my strength. They were not supposed to fight tonight. I pushed them back, but they will return stronger. Amaka's tears flooded her cheeks. "Why are you doing this? Why risk your life for my children?" MMA's lips trembled as she tried to speak. "Because your husband made a mistake that bound your family to darkness. But someone higher, refused to let innocent blood pay the price." Amaka gripped her hand. "Tell me what to do. Tell me how to protect my babies. I will do anything." The maid closed her eyes weakly. "To end this, you must go to the place where it all began. The old shrine, before sunrise. If the sun rises and the curse is not broken, they will come again. And next time, I may not be able to stop them." Amaka's heart dropped. "Where is this shrine?" The maid opened her eyes slowly. "Your husband knows. And if he does not bring you there himself, then he has chosen his own life over his children." Amaka covered her mouth in shock. The truth hit her like a physical blow. Ibuka knew. He always knew. And he left them alone with the consequences. For the first time that night, anger, deep, burning anger, rose inside her chest. She stood up slowly, her tears drying into determination. "Then I will find him," she said, "and he will take me there tonight." The maid nodded weakly. "Hurry, before the shadows return." Amaka carried her sleeping children to the living room, wrapped them in blankets, and then grabbed her car keys with trembling hands. She had no idea what she was about to face, but she knew one thing. This fight was no longer just about fear. It was about a mother protecting her children from the darkness their father invited home. Amaka drove into the night like a woman running from death itself. Her hand shook so violently on the steering wheel that she had to grip it with both palms. The road ahead looked endless, quiet, and frighteningly empty, as though the world was holding its breath, waiting for her to make the next move. The maid's last words echoed in her mind. "Your husband knows. If he does not take you there himself, he has chosen himself over his children." The thought cut her heart open in ways she had never imagined possible. Ibuka had always been secretive, always disappearing for hours, sometimes days, with explanations that never added up. She thought he was cheating or running business deals behind her back. She never imagined something darker, something ancient, had tied itself to their family through him. She reached his office building, a tall structure that usually buzzed with life. But tonight, it felt hollow, like the soul of the place had left. Only a few dim security lights flickered outside. She rushed in, not caring who saw her, her wrapper barely tied, her face wet with drying tears. The security guard, startled, stood up quickly. "Madam Amaka, is everything okay?" "No," she said sharply, her voice shaking. "Where is my husband? I need him now." The guard hesitated. "Olga left about an hour ago." He looked troubled. Troubled. Of course he was troubled. He knew the spirits were coming. "Did he say where he was going?" she asked. The guard swallowed hard. "He said he needed to clear his head and that nobody should call him." That was all Amaka needed to hear. She rushed back to the car, her heart pounding with anger and fear. She checked his usual hiding places, the bar he visited when stressed, the small lounge he used when he wanted to be alone, the gym where he sometimes took long midnight runs. He wasn't in any of them. She dialed his number repeatedly. He didn't pick up. Again, and again, and again. Her fear turned into rage. How dare he leave her alone with creatures trying to take their daughter? How dare he hide from the destruction he caused? How dare he pretend nothing was wrong while shadows crawled into walls of their home? She parked her car and leaned her head on the steering wheel, crying quietly. Her tears fell hot and heavy, each one burning with betrayal. Then her phone buzzed. A message. She grabbed it quickly. It was from Ibuka. Just 2 words. "Forgive me." Her heart dropped. Forgive him? Forgive him for what? Before she could reply, Another message came through. I can't do it. I can't face them. Her breath hitched. Her chest tightened. The meaning was too clear. He was abandoning them. Completely. She typed violently, tears dripping on the screen. Come home now. They are coming for our children. He didn't respond. She called again and again. Finally, on the seventh try, he answered. His voice was shaky, breaking. Amaka, please just take the children and leave. I can't help you. I can't go back there. I can't face what I did. You will go back, she screamed into the phone. You will take me to that shrine tonight, or we will all die. He began crying, a deep, broken cry of a man who had been living with fear for years. I made a mistake, he whispered. I begged them for success. I thought it was harmless. They told me the sacrifice would only be required if I became wealthy. I didn't know. You lied, she shouted, breaking down again. You brought this darkness into our home. You owe us the truth. You owe your daughter her life. Silence, a painful silence. Then Ibuka whispered, I don't have the strength to go back there. Amaka's entire body shook as she whispered back, Then I will drag you myself. She ended the call and drove straight to the only place she knew he would go when he was desperate. His mother's old abandoned house at the edge of the village. He used to hide there during family quarrels. It was the only place he felt no one could disturb him. The night felt too still as she arrived. No wind, no insects, no sound at all. It was as though the world around her had stopped breathing. She walked toward the door and pushed it open carefully. It creaked loudly, echoing through the empty rooms. Ibuka, she called out softly. No answer. She stepped inside, her heart in her throat. The entire house was dark, except for a dim lantern on the floor. There he was, sitting on the bare ground, his head buried in his knees, shaking from fear. When he heard her voice, he looked up. His eyes were swollen. His face was wet. He looked like a child who had seen ghosts. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. If they sent you searching for me, they will get angry. Amaka knelt in front of him, grabbing his shirt with trembling hands. They already came. They tried to take our daughter. They tried to tear our family apart. And you left us alone to face them. Ibuka sobbed harder. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought they wouldn't come. I thought. Stop thinking, she said, her voice firm. Start acting. You will take me to that shrine. Tonight, before sunrise. He shook his head violently. I can't. The moment I go there, they will demand what I owe. And if you don't go, she whispered, they will take your child. He froze. For a moment, he simply sat there, breathing hard, staring at her in horror. Then slowly, painfully, he nodded. I will take you, he whispered. But once we enter that place, there is no guarantee we will return. Amaka stood up, her eyes burning with a new kind of fear mixed with determination. Then we will not return alone, she said quietly. We will return with our children's future. Ibuka wiped his tears, stood shakily, and followed her out of the house. The moment they stepped outside, the wind picked up violently. A sign, a warning, a promise. The night knew where they were going. The spirits were waiting, and the sun was already inching closer. The road to the old shrine felt longer than any journey Amaka had ever taken. The night stretched endlessly, swallowing the headlights of the car as if the darkness itself wanted to keep them from moving forward. Ibuka sat beside her, trembling so deeply that the seat vibrated beneath him. His hands were locked together in a tight grip, his knuckles pale, his breathing uneven. Amaka should have felt anger toward him, deep, consuming anger, but as she drove through the eerie silence of the night, fear overshadowed everything else. Her children were at home with a maid who wasn't human. Creatures were watching their every move, and the fate of her family hung on this journey into the unknown. Ibuka, she said quietly, tell me what to expect when we get there. He stared out the window, refusing to meet her eyes. Nothing I say will prepare you. The shrine is older than this village, older than the ancestors we know. I was taken there by a man who promised me success, and I was foolish enough to believe him. I didn't know what I was walking into. But you stayed, she whispered. You accepted whatever they offered. He squeezed his eyes shut. I was desperate. I had nothing. My business was collapsing. My father had just died. I couldn't feed myself. I thought it was a harmless ritual. They told me the spirits were benevolent and only required respect. And maybe one day, a small payment if my wealth came. Amaka's chest tightened. And the payment was our daughter. Ibuka covered his face with his hands. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they were the kind that demanded blood. I didn't find out until after Kizaram was born. And still, she said bitterly, you stayed silent. He had no answer. The car continued down the narrow, unpaved road. Trees leaned inward from both sides, their branches twisting like giant skeletal fingers reaching toward the car. The night insects were silent. Not a single cricket chirped. Not a single owl hooted. Nature seemed to be watching without breathing. Eventually, Ibuka pointed ahead with a shaking hand. We have to continue on foot from here. Amaka parked the car, her legs trembling as she stepped out. The air outside was colder than she expected. So cold it burned through her wrapper and blouse. Ibuka pulled out a small torchlight, but the beam was too weak, as if the darkness was swallowing it. They walked slowly into the thick forest. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. A strange, heavy scent lingered in the atmosphere. Part earth, part smoke, part something indescribable. The trees grew denser, blocking the moonlight completely. The ground felt damp and soft beneath their feet, like walking on breathing soil. Amaka held on to Ibuka's shirt as they moved forward. How much farther? He didn't answer immediately. His breathing grew harsher, louder, like each step drained him. Then he whispered, We're close. When you see the fire, don't look into it. No matter what you hear, don't look. Amaka didn't understand, but she nodded. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed through the forest. A drum. Soft, slow, ancient. Then another sound joined it. A deep, vibrating hum that felt like voices buried beneath the earth were calling out names only they remembered. Amaka's heart slammed against her ribs. Ibuka, she whispered. Are they calling you? He nodded without turning around. Yes. They never forget the name of the one who owes them. The drumming grew louder. The humming deepened. Shadows danced between the trees, even though no one was there. Then they reached a clearing. And there it was, the shrine, a small, circular hut made of mud and palm branches. But the roof glowed faintly with symbols that looked carved by lightning. Fire burned in a bowl at the entrance, but the flames were black, not red. Black fire that cast no light, only shadows. Amaka stepped back in horror. This place is wrong. Ibuka whispered. I told you wouldn't be ready. A shape appeared in the doorway. Old, bent, wrapped in shredded cloth that dragged behind like a tail. It looked like a man and not a man, its face hidden, its feet floating inches above the ground. It spoke in a deep, layered voice that shook the trees. The debtor returns. Ibuka fell to his knees immediately, shaking violently. Please, please, I brought my wife. We've come to beg, not for wealth, not for power. We beg only for mercy. The creature stepped forward. You took what was not yours. You asked for a future that did not belong to you, and now you bring her. Its hidden face turned toward Amaka, and she felt something cold grip her heart, squeezing it slowly. She is marked, the creature said. She carries the blood of the firstborn. She carries the life you owe. Amaka's knees nearly buckled. No, no, please, take anything else. Take me. The creature hissed sharply, and the trees shook in response. The firstborn cannot be exchanged. Ibuka crawled toward the figure, tears flooding his face. Please, I beg you, spare her. Spare my daughter. I will do anything. You have nothing left to offer, the creature thundered. Amaka sobbed, grabbing Ibuka's arm. There must be something, anything. For a moment, the creature remained silent. Then it said the words that froze them. The only path left is the path your wife walks. Amaka looked up in confusion. What does that mean? The creature lifted a bony hand and pointed toward the night sky. She must enter the spirit realm. Ibuka gasped. No, she won't survive it. She must enter, the creature repeated, and bargain as a mother. Only a mother's spirit can break a blood oath made by a father. Amaka felt her entire body go cold. She barely whispered, If I don't go, they will take my daughter? Yes. And if I go, will I come back? Silence. Then, if you are strong enough. She turned to Ibuka. His face crumpled. Amaka, please don't do this. She placed her hand on his. I have no choice. You made a mistake, but I will not let our children pay for it. He broke down completely, sobbing into his hands. Amaka stepped forward, tears blurring her vision. Tell me what I must do. The black flames roared violently as the creature moved aside, revealing a dark opening inside the shrine. The mother enters, it said. Alone. Amaka swallowed hard. She wiped her tears, stepped forward, and crossed the threshold into the place no living soul should ever walk. The moment Amaka stepped into the shrine, the air around her collapsed into a heavy darkness, so thick it swallowed her breath. She reached out with trembling hands, feeling nothing but empty space. She tried to turn back, to look at Ibuka one last time, but the entrance behind her had vanished completely. There were no walls, no path, no flames, only endless night stretching in every direction. Her heartbeat thundered inside her ears. She whispered her children's names softly, as if the sound of them would give her strength. Kizaram, Santo, Mummy is coming back for you. I will not leave you alone. The darkness heard her. It replied. Soft whispers slithered across the air, thin and eerie, like voices coming from beneath water. Why come? Why enter? Why bleed for a child that is not yet taken? Amaka's breath caught. She turned slowly, trying to see the source, but the shadows shifted constantly, never forming a shape. Because she is mine, she whispered. Because no spirit, no shadow, no ancient oath will take my child. The whispers fell silent for a moment, as if considering her answer. Then the ground beneath her flickered with a deep red glow. Shapes began to form. Faces, old and twisted, rising from the floor like spirits trapped in molten stone. Their eyes glowed gold. Their mouths opened in silent screams. The air around them was hot, suffocating, and filled with ancient sorrow. Then one of the faces lifted itself higher than the others, forming into a tall, towering figure made of shadow and streaks of light. A long arm extended toward her. Mother, it whispered, the child you protect carries a covenant older than your blood. Why challenge what was promised? Because the promise was not mine, she said firmly, fear trembling through her voice. The promise was made by a man who didn't understand the cost. The spirit moved closer, its presence heavy enough to bend the air. And who bears the cost of ignorance? The innocent or the one who chose? Amaka swallowed hard, her voice shaking. I will pay. Take anything. Take my breath, my strength, my years, but let my children live. A low rumble echoed through the realm, as though the shadows themselves were laughing. Do not offer what you cannot survive. The path you choose is steep, even for the bravest mothers. I didn't come here to survive, she whispered. I came here to save. The floor beneath her feet cracked suddenly, splitting open into a long, glowing fissure. She stumbled backward, her heart racing. From the crack, a pale blue flame erupted, cold, silent, ghostly. More flames appeared all around her, forming a wide circle. A test, a trial. She understood that immediately. The tall figure bowed slightly, its voice echoing from every direction. Then face the 3 truths of the debt you wish to break. Only then may the spirits judge your child innocent. Amaka wiped her tears and nodded. I am ready. The first flame rose higher, shifting into a scene, so real she felt she was standing inside it. She saw Ibuka as a young man, kneeling before the shrine, desperate and trembling. She watched him speak words he didn't understand, watched him accept the bargain, watched the dark smoke wrap around him like chains. The spirit asked, What do you say to the truth that your husband created the path to your suffering? Amaka's chest tightened. She felt the weight of betrayal, the pain, the anger. She wanted to scream. But she lifted her chin and answered, I say he was wrong, but I will not let anger punish my children. The flame flickered, shrinking with a quiet hiss. A second flame rose, forming a vision of her daughter, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger around her home. But behind her, dark hands reached from the wall, stretching toward her small body. The spirit asked, What do you say to the truth that your child is marked by a shadow she did not call? Amaka stepped closer, tears falling down her cheeks. I say she is mine, and whatever mark she carries, I will carry it too. The flame dimmed. The third flame rose, the brightest, largest of all. It twisted into an image of Amaka herself, but not as she was now. This version of her looked weaker, fading, as if her soul had been pulled from her body. Her reflection stared at her with sad, hollow eyes. The spirit asked, And what do you say to the truth that saving your child may cost your own life? Amaka froze. Her whole body trembled. Her heart ached. She wanted to survive. She wanted to hold her children again. She wanted to watch them grow, laugh, graduate, marry, become everything she prayed for. But if saving them meant losing herself, she closed her eyes, let her tears fall freely, and whispered, I say a mother's life is worth giving if it means her children live. The realm shook violently. The flames roared upward. The shadows screamed. The tall spirit stepped back, lowering itself as if bowing. Then you are worthy to bargain. The ground beneath her feet turned solid again, glowing with new symbols, bright, ancient, powerful. A soft wind brushed her face, carrying the warmth of her children's names. Then a voice echoed, familiar, soft, trembling. Madam, Amaka gasped. It was the maid. MMA appeared beside her, but her form flickered like fragile light. I felt you enter the realm, she said weakly. I used the last of my energy to follow you. Amaka grabbed her hands. Are my children safe? Yes, MMA whispered. For now, but the final price must be named, and it must be yours. Amaka steadied herself. Tell me what I must do. The spirit stepped forward again. To break the oath, you must give something equal in weight to what was promised. The firstborn was the debt. You must offer a bond stronger than blood. I'll offer anything, she said. My breath, my strength. No, the spirit interrupted. A mother's love alone cannot equal the power of an oath sealed in blood. You must offer your presence. Amaka blinked in confusion. My presence? The spirit's voice deepened. You must leave your home for a year and a day. No one may see you. No one may hear you. No one may know where you are. If they do, the debt will return. Her heart fractured. A year? Away from her children? Her babies? She stepped back, shaking uncontrollably. No, I can't. I can't abandon them. The spirit's eyes glowed brighter. It is the only way the realm can balance the broken vow. You keep your children, but you lose the comfort of being with them for a time. Amaka covered her mouth as grief punched through her chest. Then she looked up slowly, courage rising through her tears. I will do it. The realm erupted in blinding light. The ground shook. The spirits wailed. A force lifted Amaka high into the air, swirling her in white and gold. Her last thought before the world disappeared was her daughter's smile and the promise she had made. Mummy will always come back. The light faded slowly, peeling away like the final layer of a dream. When Amaka opened her eyes, she found herself lying on the ground just outside the ancient shrine. The sky above was still dark, but a faint ribbon of dawn touched the horizon. Her body felt lighter, but her heart felt heavier than ever before. She pushed herself up slowly, her breath unsteady. Ibuka rushed toward her immediately, falling to his knees beside her. His eyes were swollen, full of guilt and fear. Amaka, talk to me. Are you all right? Did they hurt you? Did you see them? Please say something. His desperation filled the air like smoke. But Amaka did not answer immediately. She stared at the forest around her, realizing she had returned from a realm most humans never enter and survive. The wind felt different on her skin. The world looked muted. Sound felt muffled, distant, as if her spirit was still adjusting to being inside her body again. Finally, she whispered, "It is done." Ibuka grabbed her hand, crying in relief. Thank God. Thank the heavens. Thank everything. Amaka shook her head slowly. He froze. "There is a price," she said, her voice soft but trembling. "A year and a day. I cannot stay with you. I cannot stay with the children. If they see me, if they even hear my voice, the debt will return." Ibuka's face crumpled immediately. No, 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 no. Please, Amaka, this cannot be the answer. There must be another way. They must be lying. You can't leave. You can't leave your babies. You can't leave me. Amaka looked at him firmly, her tears slipping silently. I will not lose them. Not again. Not ever. I made a promise to protect them, and this is the only path. Ibuka fell apart right there on the forest floor, shaking like a child. Amaka, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of it. I ruined everything. She placed a trembling hand on his head. You cannot change the past, but you can protect them in my absence. You must be the father they need now. He grabbed her hand tighter. Please don't go. I can't do this alone. You don't have a choice, she said softly, and neither do I. As the first ray of morning light poured over the trees, the wind shifted again, sharp cold, carrying the final warning of the spirits. It's time, Amaka whispered. She stood carefully, swaying slightly from exhaustion. Ibuka tried to stand with her, but she stepped back. No, don't touch me. If you hold me again, the spirits will know you still cling. The separation must begin now. His tears fell faster. Please, please just let me hug you one time. Just once. She shook her head painfully. If you hug me now, our daughter may not see her next birthday. Those words broke him. He fell to the ground, crying into his hands as she stepped backwards slowly, distancing herself from the life she loved with every step she took. Tell them I love them, she whispered. Every day, every night. Tell them Mummy didn't leave because she wanted to. Tell them I left because I wanted them to live. Her voice cracked on the last word. Amaka, please. Ibuka's voice shattered, but she did not turn back. She couldn't. Turning back would kill her children. She disappeared into the trees, swallowed by the forest before the sun rose fully. Back at the house, the maid, May, sat on the living room floor, pale and almost translucent. She could barely hold her form. Her edges flickered like dying light. The children were still asleep, wrapped gently in blankets, untouched by the horrors of the night. When Ibuka returned just after dawn, carrying the weight of heartbreak on his shoulders, May looked up weakly. You made it, she whispered. He nodded, struggling to speak. She kept them safe. She paid the price. May smiled faintly, sadness washing through her fading features. She is stronger than most mothers, stronger than most spirits. Ibuka knelt beside her, his voice tight. Where did she go? How do I find her? You cannot, May whispered. Not until the time is complete. She has entered the path between worlds. A place where she will not be seen, not be heard, not be sensed. She walks in silence for the sake of her children. Ibuka began to cry again, but May placed a trembling hand on his arm. Do not cry. She walks with purpose. She will return. As the sun rose higher, May's body began to fade even more, her glow dimming until her shape became almost transparent. Ibuka panicked. What's happening to you? My task is complete, she whispered. I was sent to protect the children until the mother's spirit made her choice. Now her choice has sealed the bond. They will not return for the children again. Will I ever see you again? He asked. May smiled sadly. No, but you will remember me through them. They will grow strong. They will grow wise. They will live long lives because their mother gave her year to the realm. Her voice weakened further. And because you must now be the guardian she can't be. With one last gentle flicker of light, her form dissolved completely, like dust carried by the morning wind. The house fell silent. The children slept peacefully, and Ibuka remained kneeling on the floor, holding his head in shaking hands, knowing that the woman he loved had walked into shadows to save the family he nearly destroyed. Far away, Deep in a hidden part of the forest where humans never step, Amaka opened her eyes slowly. She was in a quiet place, a realm between worlds, not alive, not dead, but waiting. She touched her chest gently and whispered, "Mummy is still here." Her tears fell silently. 1 year, 1 day, I will survive it. She looked at the faint glow rising in the distance, the invisible barrier that kept her from home. "And I will come back for you." The seasons changed slowly, each one passing like a silent whisper through the lives of those Amaka loved. The year that followed her disappearance was unlike anything the family had ever known. The house that once echoed with her laughter felt colder. Even the walls seemed to mourn. But though she had vanished into the realm between worlds, her presence lingered like a soft shadow that refused to fade. Ibuka changed, truly changed. The man who once carried secrets like stones in his pocket now moved with a heaviness born from regret. He no longer hid in bars or offices. He no longer chased deals with desperate greed. He spent every morning preparing the children for school and every night sitting alone in the living room, whispering her name into the quiet. He became the father he should have been all along. He cooked. He cleaned. He braided Kizaram's hair, poorly at first, but with improving patience. He taught Samto how to tie his shoelaces and read bedtime stories, even though his voice often cracked in the middle of them. And every night before they slept, he told them the same thing. "Mummy loves you. Mummy is coming home." The children grew stronger too, more thoughtful, more aware. It was as if the spirits brushed with their lives, left a wisdom behind. Kizaram often looked toward the forest behind the house and smiled softly, as though she sensed something watching over her. Samto sometimes spoke of dreams where a gentle woman touched his hair and hummed a tune he could never fully remember upon waking. Though she was gone, she had never truly left them. Meanwhile, deep in the hidden realm where spirits walked like wind and time moved like slow water, Amaka endured her exile with a heart that refused to break. The realm between worlds had no day and no night, just a soft glow that breathed like a living thing. She wandered among whispering trees and floating light, learning to move as the spirits moved, silently, thoughtfully, purposefully. She missed her children with a pain so sharp it lived in her bones. Some nights, she sat on the glowing ground and closed her eyes tightly, imagining their tiny arms around her waist, their warm foreheads pressed against her chest, their laughter filling her ears. She whispered to them constantly, "Mummy is here. Mummy is strong. Mummy will return." The spirits watched her with quiet respect. They had seen many make bargains. Few survived them. Even fewer accepted them without bitterness. But Amaka carried her pain like a lantern, letting it illuminate her rather than consume her. Time in the realm moved differently, but she counted every heartbeat, every breath. She prayed silently that her children were safe, growing, learning. She prayed her husband had changed. She prayed that when she returned, she would find a family ready for healing. When the final day approached, she felt it, like a soft tremor in the air, a familiar pull toward the world she once walked. Her exile was ending. Back in the village, the night before her return held a quiet, strange tension. The wind blew differently, gentler, warmer, as if announcing something sacred. Even the trees swayed with a slow rhythm that felt purposeful. Ibuka sat outside on the veranda, staring at the moon with tired eyes. He clutched the small scarf she once used for cooking, holding it as if it were her hand. "1 more day," he whispered. "1 more day until you return." He didn't know if she would come back the same. He didn't know if she would forgive him. He didn't know if she would remember him. But he knew one thing. He would wait for her, even if his life depended on it. The children were asleep, curled on the sofa with a blanket she once bought at a market. The house felt full, but not complete, like a song missing its final chord. Midnight passed. The sky deepened. The air stilled. And then the light changed. Softly, quietly, beautifully. A gentle glow appeared at the edge of the compound. The same sacred glow that had lifted Amaka from a realm. It shimmered like morning sun on water, delicate and pure. The dogs in the neighborhood fell silent. The wind stopped moving. The earth held its breath. Ibuka stood up slowly, his heart thundering. "Amaka, The light grew stronger, forming the shape of a woman, first faint, then clearer, until the glow melted away completely. And she stood there, Amaka, alive, whole, radiant in a way no earthly woman could be. Her feet touched the ground gently, as though returning home from a long, painful journey. Her eyes glistened with tears even before she spoke. "I told you," she whispered softly, voice breaking. "I told you I'd come back." Ibuka fell to his knees, sobbing without shame. Amaka, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She stepped toward him, her breaths trembling. "I know," she said. "I know you are." He reached out slowly, hesitant, afraid she might vanish. But she took his hand first. Warm, solid, real. "Are the children asleep?" she asked, wiping her tears. "Yes," he whispered. "But you can wake them. They will want to see you." "No," she said softly, shaking her head. "Let me watch them first." They walked inside together. Amaka stood over her children, her heart swelling painfully. They had grown. Their faces were peaceful, safe, unmarked by fear. She knelt between them, brushing their hair gently, her tears falling silently. "Mummy is home," she whispered. Kizaram stirred softly, opening her eyes. "Mummy?" she murmured with a sleepy, innocent smile. Amaka broke completely. "Yes, baby. Mummy came back." Samto woke too, climbing into her lap immediately, wrapping his tiny arms around her waist. And in that moment, the year of exile melted away like it never existed. She held them close, breathing them in as if trying to fill every part of her soul. From the doorway, Ibuka watched, his eyes full of gratitude and pain and devotion. The spirits had taken their price. The debt was paid. The shadows were gone. The family was whole again. Outside, far beyond the last house in the village, a faint figure watched them from the forest. The shape of a young girl with glowing eyes, smiling gently. "MMA." Her voice drifted through the wind one last time. "Live well." Then she disappeared into the trees forever.